Hello and welcome. Today we're going to talk about StormRunnerLoad, HPE's SaaS built performance solution built for the agile world with web and mobile in mind, but has expanded out to support many solutions such as SAP, Oracle, and other legacy type ERP applications. So today we'll cover how StormRunnerLoad is designed, what scripts can be run, and how to navigate through the solution to build a performance test and build a performance engineering environment. So let's get started. So StormRunnerLoad meets some trends and challenges impacting performance, everything from DevOps out to having full performance engineering, dealing with digital transformations, mobile, and Internet of Things. So there's quite a few bits of market trends that we see out now. And with StormRunnerLoad, we are accepting those trends and challenges and how they're impacting performance and taking them on head on with StormRunnerLoad. And today and age, we have what's called bimodal IT. We have core IT solutions. These are the backbone type solutions, things like your SAP, your Oracle, things that aren't going to change. They're planned, governed, they're built to last, maybe built from a waterfall or hybrid delivery. But then we also have our agile and continuous integration solutions, or more fluid IT, thinking things like mobile or web applications that are changing daily, and we're having to live up to customers' expectations and having continuous delivery of our solutions. So with both of those, core IT and fluid IT, we need a solution to be able to support both of them, and StormRunnerLoad bridges that gap to be able to help with a more cost-efficient SaaS-based solution where we can actually support core IT and fluid IT. And the question we'll really get into is, how do you test apps? With the traditional performance testing, we have some operational expense. We need to build controllers. We need to have load generators. We need to have specialists that need to know how to use the solution. We're very isolated in things work. And of course, the release schedule isn't exactly swift or agile, if you will. And of course, in the agile performance testing suite, we have a reduced cost of ownership. We're more into an OpEx as opposed to a CapEx. We're doing it from a SaaS solution. It's very dev friendly. We're going to talk about that, how we can use different scripts built by developers to actually run performance testing. We can help accelerate releases and then, of course, support multiple devices and technology. So even mobile device testing from a performance perspective. So either one of those can be supported with StormRunnerLoad. And then when we get into testing in the agile world, right, we're going to have some technical challenges. We're going to have limited time. A lot of times performance is skipped. We don't really get predicting issues and becoming failures. And then scalability for growth. How are we going to grow with the more testing that needs to be done from a performance perspective? And then, of course, there's business implications. Is it poor UX? Are we even lost revenue because we don't have a performance built out testing environment, and our application might be suffering, which of course then leads to brand damage and, of course, as I mentioned, lost revenue. And then how are we going to accept those challenges? So the marketing trends, the customer challenges, the product directions, all of those can be affected depending on which method or which things you're concerned about, whether you have to have high performance engineering, mobile, DevOps. We have to support different devices. We have to get into large load, faster releases. We need to have a solution that supports all of those. We've done that with StormRunnerLoad, which we'll see throughout the demonstration today. But let's get into how HPE StormRunnerLoad works. As I mentioned, it's an agile performance testing in the cloud for web and mobile apps. I say for the cloud or in the cloud for web and mobile, but it's really for all these solutions, different technologies that we support now, not just web and mobile. So as I mentioned, those ERP systems, dev type scripts that we'll get to. But we break it down into three simple S's, really. Simple, smart, and scalable. It's very easy to use, which we'll see today in the demo. It's smart. We have our real-time predictive analytics, which we'll also see during the demonstration. And then, of course, it's scalable. And this is actually a little out of date. It's no longer just 1 million plus users. We've had tests run up to about 3 million users. We've had tests run for multiple days, 72 hours straight with thousands of users. So it's a very easy solution to use and run, and it's something that we can do very quickly and easy with StormRunnerLoad. So how StormRunnerLoad works, you're going to quickly create and run a load test. You're going to load up generators, and then you're going to look at the results. So when we talk about creating and running a load test, we have multiple ways we can actually do this. From the standard VUGen scripts, if you're familiar with Load Runner or Performance Center, we still support those. You still use the same technology, so you can use the same scripts you've always used. TrueClient as well, if you're familiar with that. And now you'll see a few other things that we have from the development side. LeanFT, which is HPE's functional unit testing solution, which allows developers to quickly build out functional unit tests using the proprietary spying capabilities that HP has always provided with something like UFT. And you'll also notice that Selenium is there as well. So we support Selenium scripts. So if you have developers developing Selenium scripts, we can reuse those scripts not only from a unit functional level, but also into a performance test. And then a few other open source ones such as TrueAPI, JMeter, and Gatling can be consumed in StormRunnerLoad and used as a performance test. And then load generators, we spin up and use AWS and Azure. So that's how we spin up quickly the load generators from around the world, which we'll see during the demo today, all the different locations that you can do. And then the insights and the results, right? We have integrations with SiteScope, New Relic, Dynatrace, and others coming. We've also baked in HPE and V analytics directly into the solution. So we'll be able to analyze network traffic and see how it's running during the performance test and give some feedback. And then web page tests as well. So we can tell you how well web page is being loaded and how it's being rendering and the timing of that. So in a minute, we're going to get into the demo, but I do want to remind you that just because StormRunnerLoad is a SaaS-based solution, it comes with HPE's Customer Success Manager. So that's somebody that's going to be dedicated to you, dedicated to your environment, making sure that everything related to StormRunnerLoad and any SaaS solution that you have is running smoothly, is there for you. There's somebody to help with support cases, to give you insight into what's coming out new with the solution, and just basically become part of your team from the HPE SaaS team. So let's go ahead and get into the demo, and we'll actually take a look at the solution. Now that we're in the application, one thing you'll notice is that I've accessed StormRunnerLoad via a web browser, which can be done on anything that supports HTML5. So mobile devices, tablets, obviously my PC, Safari, it's just accessible through your mobile browser. The other thing you'll notice is that we have the what's new that pops up. So for every new release of StormRunnerLoad, we'll have this what's new information that tells you the latest capabilities that we want to highlight inside of StormRunnerLoad. So for this example, we have some load throttling that we've set up and created now, transaction grouping, basic trending for scripts that have been run for transaction response time, additional runtime settings, and the ability to add multiple Git repositories. So when there's new releases that come out, you'll see this inside the application, just to give you an idea of some new features. Now inside of StormRunner, you'll first notice that things are much cleaner, easier to use, and compared to maybe Load Runner or Performance Center. So we'll see here that I can quickly create a test, or if I don't have a script, I can use some of the other capabilities we have for uploading a test, whether it be a HAR file, a REST test, or a CSV test. And to quickly create my test, I can click create test. I can go to a previously created load test. I can open up assets or results, and we'll talk about each of those here in a moment. When I click on create a test, it opens up this basic form here where I'm going to give it a pretty simple name. So I'll call it HPE Tray Demo, just so I know it's mine. And I'm going to test it against the HPE website. And then I can have some things like send me an email, determine what licensing mode I use. Do I want to enable adding virtual users during the test? So as the test is actually running, I can scale up or down the number of virtual users that are running. Do I want to enable logging? Do I need to enable multiple IPs so I can have this, the load coming from different multiple IPs in the load generators? And do I want to do any group transactions as well? Kind of the things I mentioned earlier in the what's new information. And then I simply just add my scripts. I'm just going to follow my tabs here just straight down to do what I need to do. I can upload a script from my local computer or from my Git repository. I'll just upload a zip file of VUGen or TrueClient, a LeanFT, Selenium test, JMeter, Gatling, or any of the other technologies that are supported. I'm going to go ahead and use ones that I've already created. So I'm going to add it from my assets. So it brings up all the scripts that have been added into StormRunnerLoad, and I'm going to search for HPE. And you can see all the different script types that are here: TrueClient Web, HTTP Web, JMeter, Selenium. I can select any different combinations that I want. I'm going to select an HPE Web, and let's go ahead and say a true client web as well. So now I have my two scripts, and here I can flush out how I want to run my test, the dynamics of it, if you will. So if maybe I want 20 users here, 5 users in this script, I want them both to start at the same time. I'm going to do a ramp up of every 1 second here, every 5 second here for each individual user logging in and using the script. What duration that I want. I want 10 minutes for each one, and then my teardown. And then I can also determine the location of my load generator for each individual script. I can change it to a cloud load generator, an on-premise load generator, or a private cloud load generator. So even though StormRunnerLoad is SaaS-based, we do have the ability to run on-premise load generators, or you can install load generators in your own private AWS or Azure cloud as well. And so I can combine tests where I have a cloud and on-prem together. Makes it much more flexible, much more powerful for you using StormRunnerLoad. And then also I can customize my runtime settings for each script. So logging, think time, proxy, whatever I need to do to build a proper test that I actually want to run would be most likely to be a realistic scenario, right? How fast people are thinking in between each click, do they clear the browser cache, etc. Once I have that set up, I can just move down into my monitors. So if I want to add any backend monitors, we mentioned this earlier, we have the integration with New Relic and Dynatrace and SiteScope. So if I can pull in that backend environment diagnostic information to see how the operating system or the database or the server, the hardware, whatever we want to monitor with each of those solutions, I could pull the data into StormRunnerLoad and now be able to fully see and correlate if I have this many users with this many transactions, with this transaction response time, is it correlated to an issue in the backend? And that gives us more flexibility in building out more powerful performance engineering tests as opposed to just throwing load at something and seeing if it breaks. It's going to give us an idea where it's breaking. And then I get into my distribution. This is where I actually set up the locations of my load generators in the cloud. So in this case, I have many different ones I can choose from around the world, whether they be Azure or AWS. I just simply select the ones I want. And if I have any on-premise ones that I want to load in from assets or create, or from a private cloud as well if I want to add in my own locations. And then for each of them, you select the distribution. So if I wanted to make this pretty simple across the board, I could do 20% of the scripts will come from Central Canada, Frankfurt and Sao Paulo, Virginia, and London. Or I could do 50 and then 10, 10, 20, 10, or whatever other combination I want. And the other thing you'll notice is we also have the network virtualization baked right into StormRunnerLoad. This is where we can actually simulate real network conditions. So we can have the scripts functioning on different networks to see how the load will be affected. So for instance, from Canada, I could have it 100% Wi-Fi if I wanted. And then from Frankfurt, I can have it evenly distributed between 20% across the board. And from Sao Paulo, I'll do 100% mobile busy. And the other ones I'll just leave as the native connections. This will give us an idea of how the scripts are going to function, how our performance test is going to handle, and how our application is going to handle different network conditions. Because we all know that somebody on a mobile busy network compared to a Wi-Fi network is going to have a very different user experience between the two. And then from there, we get into our SLAs. So if I can have my SLAs set up where they're within 3 seconds of the transaction response time, or I expect a 3-second transaction response time for each of these transactions that I created while using my VUGen script or True Client script to make sure that I'm actually getting the proper SLA for my customers. Maybe I expect to load a page in a certain amount of time or search in a certain amount of time. And if I get to an issue where too many of them are failing, we'll stop, or not meeting those transaction response time SLAs, we'll stop and fail the test and say, it's taking too long to run these. We need to go fix them. There's no reason to continue at this point. And then we get into our client-side breakdown. This is part of the analytics pieces we've built in. So the NV Insights, we can actually run against the different scripts to actually get insights on how the script is performing on different networks. So we'll be able to give you some information back, and we'll look at that in some of the results later to see how are they performing, are there things we can improve on, where are we seeing major issues coming from. And then I can do a web page test report, so I can point it at a direct URL. So maybe I want to go to HPE directly. So I'll load hpe.com on a native connection, or I could do a 5K dial-up or a DSL, and we'll get some information back from the web page test that says this is how long things are taking to load specifically on this URL. So just a thing we've baked right into StormRunner to give you some more power into seeing how a page might be loading, see what data, response time, things of that nature directly to that one page. And then I can get into scheduling. I can schedule my test to run at a later time if I want to, or I can simply run the test now, which is what I'm going to do. So when I click Run Test, it's going to start provisioning my load generators, start doing some of my NV insights, all the different things that I've had set up. Once it gets all the load generators provisioned around the world, I will then be able to send out and run my performance test and all my scripts to those load generators and run it back. We can see here that I broke one of the rules of using web page tests is only supported in AWS locations, which is perfectly fine. I'll go back and not do a web page test. That's okay. And I'll go ahead and run my test again. So as I mentioned, it's going to spin up load generators and then push all the scripts to each of them and start provisioning virtual users. Now, the one nice thing about StormRunnerLoad is that we do not have to sit here and watch this run. We do have the ability to run multiple tests at a single time. We do not have to sit here and watch it like we do with Load Runner, where we have to be in the controller and it's only one test at a time, or in Performance Center having to have multiple controllers with multiple load generators. I have the ability to navigate away and create a new test, run another test, and I can run as many tests as I want as long as I'm still in the confines of my license or still have enough virtual user hours or virtual users to run my test. So I can create another one and run it now, or if I need to go back to my existing test that I've initiated, so you can see my HPE trade demo is being initiated, and if I click on the dashboard, it'll bring me back to this same page, which I can certainly sit here and watch and wait for it to run and provision. And once it does provision, I'll be able to see the dashboard with some of the real-time analytics. So once this is starting to run, we'll come back and take a look at the results and see what we're getting from our performance test. Now that the test has started, we'll start to see that this is completely dynamic as the graphs change based on either the running V users, the hits per second, the throughput, eras, etc. And after a few minutes, we'll start to actually see some of the predictive pieces come into play. And we'll start to see what we call the predictive sleeve that will be on all the graphs. But as this is running, I'd like to point out that we can actually merge graphs together. So I can merge the running V users with, say, transactions and the average transaction response time and pick all of them. So we can see how those are together. So we can start to see the graphs merging together based on the average transaction response time. If I don't like that, I can certainly remove it. And let's see, just the client, and let's do the hits per second running with V users. So we can see the hits per second mixed with the running V users. The other things we can see up here are the SLA warnings, any anomalies, which we'll cover here in a moment when predictive starts, and script errors. So in case you're a bad scripter like I am and made a terrible script, you might see quite a few script errors here, which is okay, but I can always drill down and see particularly what the issue might be. And I can click on it, and I'll even create a graph for me and show the number of times that that error continues to pop up. If I select the SLA warnings, I can then go to and see where they are. So my SLA warnings here for this one is showing up that my click image is having a very slow transaction response time, over almost 25 seconds, which is way more than the 3-second minimum that we set up. So which is why it's being marked as an SLA warning. And so we'll give this a few more minutes and we'll start to see the predictive piece. Somewhere between 2 and 4 minutes is about when we see that predictive sleeve appear. And of course, as I mentioned, this is dynamic. The other thing that's nice is you'll notice is as I move my mouse and cursor over different graphs, it lines up with all the other graphs as well. So I don't have to worry about looking back and forth or trying to open multiple screens. They just exist together across all the graphs as I move them. So there we go. Now we can see the predictive piece. So we can see it's just starting here in the running V user graph merged with hits per second. So this little predictive sleeve is saying based on the aggregate data that we've collected, this is about the range we expect this graph to be in. So over here on the hits per second, we expect it to be in this range of some sort. If suddenly it jumps above or way below, We'll mark that as an anomaly and we'll say something unusual happened, and we'll then be able to drill down and find more information about particularly what could be causing the problem, and then see, is it because of throughput? If we've got some of the monitors created and set up, it could be from a back end issue, but just something that's out of ordinary and out of our predictive piece that we have here in the graph. So we're going to let this test run, and then the next time I come back, we'll jump forward in time to when it's completed, and we'll talk about some more of the results we can look at. Now that the test is completed, we skip forward in time about 5 minutes. We can see that the running V users has, of course, dropped. The hits per second have come down, and the errors have leveled out, and the sock is finished. You can see here that we have no anomalies, meaning nothing out of the ordinary has shot up one way or the other. And so once we're done looking at our dashboard and quickly viewing things, we might want to use our reporting and be able to send out this report of all the information that we've gathered particular to this test. So all the summary, the total number of users, the total throughput, the average hits per second, what scripts were done, the distribution across the board, locations, network emulation, the transactions that we were monitoring, if they were failed or passed. Then come down, we can show each individual graph that we had in there. So the throughput, the hits per second, etc. If we created any additional graphs or did any merging or did any benchmark graphing, we would have those in here as well. And then finally, we can get into our client-side breakdown. This is the piece of the network analytics report I talked about earlier. So this is where I'm actually analyzing the network traffic, and you can see that this one had a grade of C. So if I actually click on the C, it takes me to the particular information here, and it's grouped by transaction. I could change it to network scenario and show the individual scenarios. So here's this one transaction that we were monitoring with its grade of C. And then when I drill down further, I'll actually get some optimization recommendations. So these are things based on industry standards we recommend improving on. And this is just saying your application could look correct, could be functioning correct, but as far as particular performance of the application, it's being affected based on these small little things that you could do to improve. And across whatever network it's running on, it would be an improved performance. One of the most common things we see are things not compressed. So there's compression issues. So we could have compressed some of these JavaScript, some of these images. A lot of times we see people take large website images and try to use them on mobile devices, which causes slow performance. Repeat downloads is another common one. Cookies too large. So again, large objects up here. So if we just improved on some of these F's and E's and C's, the entire grade of our application and the network performance would go up for us, and we wouldn't run into these issues of slow performance, particularly maybe if we were having a bunch of SLAs failing or transaction response times increasing. So we can get some more information, particular around the types of HTTP and SSL summaries. Again, we can look into the HTTP analysis piece and actually look at the individual calls and see how long each one of them is taking. Just an additional piece inside of StormRunner that we baked right into the application as opposed to having it separated out, say for instance between LoadRunner and NV Analytics and being two different tools. They're now built together inside of StormRunner. The other thing we can do is actually export this information, so I can email this out, send it as a PDF, Word, CVS, or export it to the NV Insight report, so I can actually export this out and be able to send it off to people who may need to do it. The other thing is when the result is done, it's actually sent via email, so I can get an email notifying me that my test has been completed. So this has been a nice overview presentation about what StormRunnerLoad is, how it works, how it uses either VUGen, TrueClient, LeanFT, Selenium, all the different types of scripts that we support, how easy it is to set up and run the test. And if you actually have any questions about this, I'd be more than happy to help you set up a trial or get some more detailed information, share a few help site links. One thing I'd like to share with you is our application delivery management help site. So just admhelp.sas.hpe.com takes you to the help center for all the applications that we have, and you can actually go to the ones that you want to look to. So for instance, StormRunnerLoad takes me to my StormRunnerLoad help site, and here's all the information I could ever need. It's updated with the most recent version. You can always come and see what's new, go look at videos or do more research if we need. Of course, you can always contact me directly, and I'll be more than happy to talk to you and help with StormRunnerLoad or any of the other solutions that HPE provides from the ADM stack. So again, thank you very much.